My name is Michael McCaffrey, and this is Amazing Discoveries News. One of the most talked about stories in the news recently is the story of Kim Davis, the Kentucky clerk who refused to issue a marriage license to a gay couple.
You should be ashamed of yourself! Everyone in this office should be ashamed of themselves. Is this what you want to remember? Is this what you want to remember? That you stood up for this? That your children have to look at you and realize that you're a bigot?
CNN reported that Davis argued that she is unable to comply with the court orders because issuing same-sex marriage licenses irreparably and irreversibly violates her conscience. For refusing to violate her conscience, the freedom of Kim Davis was taken from her. She was placed under arrest and put in jail. U.S. District Judge David Bunning said Davis would remain behind bars until she complies. Kim's lawyer, Matthew Staver, told the press, "Knowing Kim Davis and her strong Christian resolve and convictions, she may be jailed behind bars, but her conscience remains free." And that's what this story is all about, liberty of conscience. We've been told the authorities will make laws to restrict religious liberty. They will think they can force the conscience which God alone should control. This work they will continue till they reach a boundary over which they cannot step. God will interpose in behalf of His loyal commandment-keeping people. In the name of equal rights and liberty for all, the homosexual marriage law has been pushed through the Supreme Court, and what is the result? The rights and liberty of Christians have been under open attack. In the case of Kim Davis, the judge did not order her to pay a fine or even serve in jail for a specified amount of time. Rather, U.S. District Judge David Bunning said Davis would remain behind bars until she complies. This sentence reveals the judge is not merely interested in a fair judicial process. This sentence is about controlling the conscience of Kim Davis. Jesus said, "Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's." By placing Kim Davis in jail until she complies with the court, the judge was attempting to steal the conscience of Kim Davis from God Himself. After a short time in jail, Kim Davis was released, but the lens of prophecy tells us this controversy is just beginning. The banner of truth and religious liberty held aloft by the founders of the Gospel Church and by God's witnesses during the centuries that have passed since then has, in this last conflict, been committed to our hands. The world is entering into its last great conflict over religious liberty, which will culminate in a conflict between the law of God and the laws and traditions of men, and the Bible is full of examples. In Daniel chapter 3, Nebuchadnezzar passed a law mandating the worship of the golden image in violation of the second commandment, forcing God's people to choose between the law of God and the laws of men. King Darius passed a law forcing the people to pray to the king only, forcing Daniel to choose between the law of God or the laws of men. In ancient Egypt, Pharaoh passed a law forcing the Hebrew slaves to work on Sabbath, forcing them to choose between the law of God and the laws of men. And so too will the world's last ruler pass a law forcing God's people to choose between the law of God and the laws of men. All these examples are conflicts of liberty of conscience, and in them all, the governments had overstepped their dominion in attempting to control the conscience of men. The entire world is watching these stories of religious liberty unfold on the news, desperately wondering what we already know. Where is this all going? Can we not assist in lifting up the standard and in calling to the front those who have a regard for their religious rights and privileges? The time is fast approaching when those who choose to obey God rather than man will be made to feel the hand of oppression. Shall we then dishonor God by keeping silent while His holy commandments are trodden underfoot? While the Protestant world is by her attitude making concessions to Rome, let us arouse to comprehend the situation and view the contest before us in its true bearings. Are we living in a time when those who obey God rather than men are feeling the hand of oppression? Are we living in a time when Protestants are making concessions with Rome? It was just last year in 2014 when Tony Palmer, an Anglican minister, spoke to a room full of Protestant Christians and said to them,
because I challenge my Protestant pastor friends, if there is no more protest, how can there be a Protestant church? Maybe now we're all Catholics again.
Plans are already being made for Catholics and Protestants to celebrate the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation together. The General Secretary of the Lutheran World Federation said the relationship between Lutherans and Catholics is being transformed from conflict to communion. A joint Vatican and Lutheran report stated, "The awareness is dawning on Lutherans and Catholics that the struggle of the 16th century is over, and the reasons for mutually condemning each other's faith have fallen by the wayside." Unbeknownst to Protestant Christians, they are allying themselves with religious liberty's most dangerous opponent. The people of our land need to be aroused to resist the advances of this most dangerous foe to civil and religious liberty. Who is this great enemy of religious liberty? Consider this quote. The Constitution of the United States guarantees liberty of conscience. Nothing is dearer or more fundamental. Pope Pius IX, in his encyclical letter of August 15, 1854, said the absurd and erroneous doctrines or ravings in defense of liberty of conscience are a most pestilential error, a pest of all others most to be dreaded in a state. The same Pope, in his encyclical letter of December 8, 1864, anathematized those who assert the liberty of conscience and of religious worship, also all such as maintain that the Church may not employ force. Today, the headlines read, 8 ways Pope Francis is changing the direction of the Catholic Church. Pope Francis, changing the Catholic Church and the world. The Pope's relaxing the rules on divorce, refusing to make any condemnatory remarks on gay marriage, and asserting himself as a leader to tackle climate change all make the Pope a popular and respectable leader in the eyes of our global society. Perhaps the face of the Church has changed, but what about the bitter resentment and intolerance of liberty that fueled its actions for more than 13 centuries? A Catholic bishop once commented on the conciliatory nature of the papacy and said this, "The pacific tone of Rome in the United States does not imply a change of heart. She is tolerant where she is helpless," says Bishop O'Connor. Religious liberty is merely endured until the opposite can be carried into effect without peril to the Catholic world. The face of the papacy may change, but at its heart it is still the same today as it was when John saw her drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. In 2014, Newsweek published an article titled, "With Their First Pope, Jesuits Are Making a Comeback." In this article, they said, is the Pope a Catholic? Of course, but Francis is a Jesuit too. While touting themselves as a selfless, self-sacrificial order of servants, the real truth is something quite contrary. It was at a time when the Protestant Reformation was gaining traction as a formidable foe that the order of the Jesuits began. The first triumphs of the Reformation past, Rome summoned new forces, hoping to accomplish its destruction. At this time, the Order of the Jesuits was created, the most cruel, unscrupulous, and powerful of all the champions of popery. Vowed to perpetual poverty and humility, it was their studied aim to secure wealth and power to be devoted to the overthrow of Protestantism and the re-establishment of the papal supremacy. With these intentions, the world's first Jesuit Pope has endeavored to realize this 500-year-old ambition. President Obama and other world leaders have called the Pope the world's moral authority, and the Pope's visit to the United States is sure to further assert the Pope as the world's best leader, further positioning the papacy to regain the global and civil authority it lost in 1798. Reading the news today, we can see that our world is facing several major crises right now, such as a looming financial crisis, social unrest, and climate change, all of which have one solution being promoted by the Pope, presidents, and leaders that is said to solve all these problems, and that is a day of rest. Last August, the Vatican TV service released a video with the Pope promoting the benefits of Sunday.
Ma il vero tempo della festa sospende il lavoro professionale ed è sacro perché ricorda all'uomo e alla donna che sono fatti ad immagine di Dio, il quale non è schiavo del lavoro, ma Signore, e dunque anche noi non dobbiamo mai essere schiavi del lavoro, ma signori. Sappiamo che ci sono milioni di uomini e donne e addirittura bambini schiavi del lavoro. In questo tempo ci sono schiavi, sono sfruttati, schiavi del lavoro. E questo è contro Dio e contro la dignità della persona umana. L'ossessione del profitto economico e l'efficientismo della tecnica mettono a rischio i ritmi umani della vita, perché la vita ha i suoi ritmi umani. Il tempo di riposo, soprattutto quello domenicale, è destinato a noi perché possiamo godere di ciò che non si produce e non si consuma, non si compra e non si vende. E invece vediamo che l'ideologia del profitto e del consumo vuole mangiarsi anche la festa. Anch'essa a volte viene ridotta a un affare, a un modo per fare soldi e per spenderli. Ma è per questo che lavoriamo.
A national or even international Sunday law seems like an impossibility to skeptics. Israel, they say, with its large population of Jewish people, would never accept such a policy. But here's what Israel National News published on September 9th. New bill to make Sunday a day off in Israel. And just as in ancient times, in Babylon and in Egypt, the people will be brought to make a decision between the authority and law of God and the laws of man. While the observance of the false Sabbath in compliance with the law of the state, contrary to the fourth commandment, will be an avowal of allegiance to a power that is in opposition to God, the keeping of the true Sabbath in obedience to God's law is an evidence of loyalty to the Creator. While one class, by accepting the sign of submission to earthly powers, receive the mark of the beast, the other, choosing the token of allegiance to divine authority, received the seal of God. And this year, such a law was proposed in U.S. Congress.
We are slowly eroding religion at every opportunity that we have. Probably we should be debating a bill requiring every American to attend a church of their choice on Sunday to see if we can get back to having a moral rebirth.
When our nation shall so abjure the principles of its government as to enact a Sunday law, Protestantism will in this act join hands with popery. It will be nothing else than giving life to the tyranny which has long been eagerly watching its opportunity to spring again into active despotism. America has had a rich history of formidable proponents of liberty of conscience, but their words and wisdom are scarcely heard today. Consider this quote by Abraham Lincoln, who, speaking of the Civil War, said, "The Protestants of both the North and the South would surely unite to exterminate the priests and the Jesuits if they could hear what Professor Morse has said to me of the plots made in the very city of Rome to destroy this republic, to undermine our institutions, alienate the hearts of our people from our Constitution and our laws, destroy our schools, and prepare a reign of anarchy here, as they have done in Ireland, in Mexico, in Spain, and wherever there are a people who want to be free." The Jesuit agenda Lincoln warned us about is being realized before our eyes as the Jesuit Pope visits America to fulfill its 500-year-old ambition to overthrow Protestantism and reestablish the papal supremacy. On August 7th, it was announced that Pope Francis would address the people from the same podium used by Abraham Lincoln when he gave his Gettysburg Address. Lincoln's famous 272-word address given on November 19, 1863, after the bloodiest battle of the U.S. Civil War, is famed as a celebration of U.S. values and a defense of the conflict that ended slavery in the then young nation. Lincoln's last words in the Gettysburg Address, spoken from this podium, well illustrate the values that the United States held that were a foundation of this country. It is rather for us to be here, dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. And now, what symbolic meaning can be taken from Lincoln's greatest foe and freedom's greatest opponent, speaking from the same podium, except that which is said from this podium by the Jesuit Pope will be an attempt to undo all that Lincoln fought for and all our soldiers died for. Protestantism in the nation is nearly dead. The spirit of protest has become a spirit of unity and reconciliation, and such was long foretold to be the condition at the end of time. The Protestants of the United States will be foremost in stretching their hands across the gulf to grasp the hand of spiritualism. They will reach over the abyss to clasp hands with the Roman power, and under the influence of this threefold union, this country will follow in the steps of Rome in trampling on the rights of conscience. We are not seeing the beginning of a new prosperous age, but the beginning of the end of freedom of conscience. The torch of religious liberty has been committed to our hands, and so we've been instructed, let us show people where we are in prophetic history and seek to arouse the spirit of true Protestantism, awakening the world to a sense of the value of the privileges of religious liberty so long enjoyed. The prophecies of the Bible have declared what is now being confirmed by current events. We are now entering the final crisis. Only in Jesus Christ is true freedom to be found, for the Son of Man is not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. The kingdom of this world operates by force and compulsion of cruelty, but the kingdom Christ came to offer us operates by love of our own free will. The last great conflict will bring us all to choose between these two kingdoms. Therefore, choose Christ, who is the truth, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And if the Son therefore shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. The persecutions of Protestants by Romanism, by which the religion of Jesus Christ was almost annihilated, will be more than rivaled when Protestantism and Popery are combined. The commandment-keeping people of God ere long will be placed in a most trying position, but all those who have walked in the light and diffused the light will realize that God interposes in their behalf. When everything looks most forbidding, then the Lord will reveal His power to His faithful ones. When the nation for which God has worked in such a marvelous manner and over which He has spread the shield of omnipotence abandons Protestant principles and through its legislature gives countenance and support to Romanism in limiting religious liberty, then God will work in His own power for His people that are true. The tyranny of Rome will be exercised, but Christ is our refuge. This is Michael McCaffrey for Amazing Discoveries News.